The radios crackled first. What had been a routine afternoon at the Panama Canal suddenly wasn't routine anymore. Dock workers stopped. Security vehicles accelerated toward the docks. Orders were shouted across the water. A cargo ship, already inside one of the most controlled transit zones on Earth, was being detained. For a few minutes, nobody outside the Port Authority knew why. The ship sat low in the water, motionless, surrounded by officials who were no longer treating it like ordinary cargo traffic. Its crew was being separated. Access points were being sealed. The canal, a place built for movement, froze. This was July 2013, and the calm machinery of global trade had just encountered something it wasn't prepared for. The ship was called Chong Chon Gang. By the time it entered the Panama Canal, the Chong Chon Gang was already an aging vessel. It had been built in the late 1970s during a period when North Korea was still closely aligned with the Soviet bloc and actively expanding its merchant fleet. Cargo ships from that era were engineered for endurance, thick steel hulls, simple mechanical systems, and wide open holds designed for bulk transport. By 2013, ships of its class were considered outdated, slower, less efficient, often retired or sold off by modern shipping companies. But age can be an advantage. Older ships attract less scrutiny, their maintenance records are thinner, their ownership structures are often opaque, and most importantly, they are cheap to operate, ideal for states or operators willing to trade efficiency for discretion. The Chong Chon Gang could carry tens of thousands of tons of cargo. Its holds were deep, its compartments were sane, and its internal layout allowed cargo to be stacked in dense layers, one on top of another, without easy visibility once sealed. For legitimate trade, that design was unremarkable. For concealment, it was ideal. The ship had also accumulated a quiet reputation. Over the years, it had been detained in foreign ports for irregularities. It had appeared in incident reports. It had been associated with shipments that raised concerns, though none had previously produced conclusive evidence. Until now, because when this ship triggered an intelligence alert before reaching the canal, officials didn't dismiss it as coincidence. Old ships like this are supposed to blend in. This one didn't. According to its paperwork, the Chong Chon Gang had departed from Havana, Cuba, and was returning to East Asia carrying nothing but sugar. Tons of it. Sugar shipments were common, boring even. They moved quietly through ports, rarely inspected beyond standard procedure. But despite the mundane declaration, Panamanian authorities had been warned in advance that something about this vessel wasn't right. Initially, they suspected drugs. That's how most seizures begin. Narcotics hidden in bulk cargo. False walls, concealed compartments, nothing unusual in theory. But when officials boarded the ship, the inspection escalated almost immediately. The crew didn't behave like a crew with nothing to hide. Merchant sailors are accustomed to inspections. They complain about delays, they argue over paperwork. But they don't physically resist. They especially don't resist inside a canal that functions as a geopolitical choke point, where any confrontation guarantees attention from multiple governments. On the Chong Chon Gang, access to cargo areas was blocked. Orders were ignored. Tempers flared. This wasn't confusion. It was urgency. And then came the moment that transformed suspicion into certainty. The ship's captain reportedly attempted to take his own life rather than allow a full search to proceed. That single act changed the nature of the inspection. Captains are legally responsible for manifests, declared cargo, and compliance. Ignorance is rarely a defense. Whatever was hidden aboard that ship, he understood its consequences better than anyone else on board. At that point, Investigators stopped thinking in terms of narcotics or smuggling profits. This was something heavier, something state-level. Authorities committed fully. The ship was seized, the cargo would be unloaded, all of it. The process was slow and exhausting. Thousands upon thousands of sacks were moved by hand. Sugar spilled across the docks, white and granular, sticking to skin in the tropical heat. Hour after hour, inspectors found nothing out of place, just sugar, exactly as declared. And then deep inside the hold, they struck something solid. Metal, crates, not damaged, not improvised, carefully reinforced, precisely packed, deliberately hidden. As the sugar was stripped away, the outline of what lay beneath became impossible to ignore. What emerged from under the sacks was not contraband in the usual sense. It was military hardware. 2 MiG-21 fighter jets, disassembled but intact. Missile components, radar systems, anti-aircraft equipment, jet engines, 15 of them, including spare power plants intended for refurbishment and reuse. The weapons had been buried so thoroughly that discovery required removing thousands of tons of food placed intentionally on top. The MiG-21 was not just any aircraft. It was one of the most widely produced fighter jets in history, designed in the Soviet Union during the height of the Cold War. First introduced in the late 1950s, it became the backbone of air forces across communist and non-aligned states for decades. Simple, fast, deadly for its era. The aircraft was exported aggressively to Soviet allies, including Cuba and North Korea. During the Cold War, receiving MiG-21s was almost a rite of passage within Moscow's orbit. By 2013, the MiG-21 was obsolete by modern Western standards. But obsolete did not mean useless. For nations with limited access to modern aircraft, older jets could be refurbished, cannibalized for parts, or repurposed for training. Engines could be reused, avionics replaced, airframes extended far beyond their intended lifespan. And North Korea, long cut off from legitimate arms markets, had built its military doctrine around exactly that reality. These jets weren't being shipped for nostalgia. They were being preserved for relevance. And now they were sitting in the middle of the Panama Canal. This was not a mistake. This was not poor labeling. This was concealment by design. Within hours, the story broke globally. Images of sugar sacks stacked beside fighter jet fuselages spread across television screens and front pages. Civilian commodity and military force frozen in the same frame. The question wasn't just what had been found. It was how the ship had made it this far. Under international sanctions, North Korea was prohibited from importing or exporting major weapons systems. Combat aircraft were among the most tightly restricted items. These rules were explicit. And yet here was a North Korean vessel carrying fighter jets, transiting one of the most scrutinized waterways on Earth. Cuba responded quickly. Officials admitted the weapons belonged to them. According to Havana, the equipment was obsolete, defensive, not offensive, and had been shipped to North Korea for repair. After servicing, they claimed, the weapons would be returned to Cuba. No sale, no transfer of ownership, just maintenance. On paper, it sounded almost plausible, until the obvious question surfaced. If the shipment was legitimate, why hide it? Why bury weapons beneath sugar instead of declaring them openly? Why omit them entirely from the cargo manifest? Why choose a route guaranteed to invite international scrutiny? There were no convincing answers. Sugar doesn't require secrecy. Weapons do. As the investigation widened, attention returned to the ship itself. The Chong Chon Gang was not an unknown entity. It had been detained before. Its tracking behavior had raised concerns. Transponders had gone dark mid-voyage, only to reappear later. This wasn't an unlucky ship. It was a practiced one. United Nations sanctions experts were brought in. Their investigations stretched over months. They examined shipping documents, cargo placement, crew testimony, and North Korea's long record of sanctions evasion. Their conclusion was blunt. The concealment alone constituted a violation. After that, the Chong Chon Gang case became a reference point for the United Nations. Not because it was the largest seizure, but because it was undeniable. This wasn't a satellite image. It wasn't leaked intelligence. It wasn't an allegation. It was physical proof. The case appeared in sanctions reports. It was cited in briefings. It became a warning shared with customs agencies and port authorities around the world. Inspections changed. Declared cargo mattered less than behavior. Ships tied to sanctioned states were scrutinized not only for what they carried, but for how they reacted when asked to open their holds. For North Korea, the window narrowed. Routes closed, costs rose. Each shipment carried more risk. The logistics network sustaining its military became harder to maintain. Not because of one ship, but because one ship had been caught. Regardless of Cuba's explanation, the shipment violated international sanctions. Repair or not, concealment demonstrated intent to deceive. The shipment was illegal, and the implications reached far beyond a single vessel. Diplomats privately acknowledged what the public was beginning to understand. This was almost certainly not an isolated case. It was simply the one that failed. If weapons could be hidden under sugar and transported halfway across the world, how many other shipments had passed undetected? Through quieter ports? Under lighter scrutiny? For North Korea, the consequences were immediate and lasting. Sanctions enforcement tightened. Shipping companies linked to the regime faced greater pressure. Ports became more aggressive. The country's already narrow access to global trade shrank further. For Cuba, the embarrassment lingered. The justification satisfied few. Credibility suffered. And for Panama, the seizure marked a turning point. The canal had proven it was more than a corridor. It was a checkpoint capable of stopping state-level deception. The crew of the Chong Chon Gang remained detained for months. Legal proceedings unfolded quietly. Some sailors were released, others were repatriated. The ship itself was held until heavy fines, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, were paid. Only then was it allowed to leave. When it finally sailed away, it did so stripped of its secret. But the moment lingered. Because for a brief time, the global system of trust cracked open. International trade depends on declarations, paperwork, and assumption. The assumption that what's written down reflects what's inside. In July of 2013, that assumption failed. A sack of sugar is harmless, until it isn't. Ships still pass through the canal every day. Containers stack higher. Manifests scroll across screens. The flow never stops. But for a moment in Panama, one ship reminded the world of something uncomfortable. That even in the most regulated spaces on Earth, the line between civilian commerce and covert military operation can disappear. Quietly, deliberately, beneath the weight of something as ordinary as sugar. And by the time the truth is uncovered, the damage is already done. Before you go, if you like dark, unsolved stories, the Tylenol murders is one you shouldn't miss. A case which has never been solved since 1982. If you enjoyed this video, a like means more than you might think. And if you want more stories like this, subscribing helps us continue the work.